Hi HyperJapan and welcome to our tour of Akihabara today. My name's Rob, I'm from InsideJapan Tours. I'm going to be joined later on by my good friends and colleagues Chantel and Brett. We're going to be taking you on a tour of Akihabara through some manga, video games, anime, but first we're going to be starting in the outskirts at Kanda Myojin Shrine, one of the most important shrines in Tokyo. So, it's right behind us, let's get going. So, I'm sure you're wondering, why are we starting at a shrine when we were doing a tour of Akihabara? Well, actually, this shrine is a really unique shrine in Tokyo and in fact all of Japan. Not only was it extremely popular among daimyo warlords, among samurai, but it has now also become a really popular place among otaku, anime fans, manga fans, video game fans. And part of it, the main reason is because we are so close to Akihabara, but there are also many more other interesting reasons why you have all these fans coming to this shrine. I'll talk a little bit about those in a minute. We're coming up to here is Zuijin Mon, or the first gate, Zuijin Gate, and the Zuijin are either side, which you can see right in front of you. This is the one on the left, and they are the guardians of the gate and the guardians of the gods. So Zuijin was the name given to the bodyguards of the emperor in Kyoto, and so that's where this name comes from. Now, as we walk into Kanda Myojin itself, you're probably wondering, well, who is this shrine dedicated to? Who is enshrined here? And the first of which we'll be able to see over to our left, and that is the lucky god of Daikokuten. And our Daikokuten is the god of harvest and matrimony and good fortune. You can see his hammer up there, and he's on 2 barrels of rice. Now, he is a very lucky god, and there is also another lucky god who this temple is dedicated to, perhaps even related to Daikokuten himself. Now, you may have heard of him, you may even have drank him, and that is because there are 4 main beer companies in Japan. One is Asahi, another is Sapporo, another is Kirin, and the final 4th one is called Yebisu, and that is named after the god Ebisu, who is the god of business and fishing, another of the lucky gods. You can see him here with his fish and his fishing rod, and he is the god of business and fishermen. So, in my opinion, this is probably the tastiest of those 4 beers. As you can see, it's a premium, and there's even a station named after it, Ebisu in Tokyo, and so that's where the original brewery was. And so I highly recommend going to Ebisu, checking it out, and trying one of these beers. You can just get them in a convenience store, very cheap, and you can drink the beer of the gods. Now, there are not just 2 gods that this shrine is dedicated to, but the 3rd, and in my opinion the most interesting, is called Taira Masakado. Now, Taira Masakado was a samurai who rebelled against the emperor in Kyoto, and for that he had his head cut off. His head was sent back to Edo, which is Tokyo today, and it was buried in a head mound alongside this shrine. This shrine was a little bit closer to where the imperial palace is in the center of Tokyo. However, when the shrine was moved, they tried to move the head mound as well, but actually the head, every time they tried to move it, a huge disaster happened. There was a fire broke out, people died, there were floods, and so they decided to stop moving it and leave it where it was. Even when the Americans came and tried to build their occupational HQ and move the head mound in order to do so, there were huge disasters. A truck tipped over of Japanese workers who were employed to move it, and then so the Americans sent their own men, and even they were killed as their truck moved over. So that's why the head mound isn't here, but it's still in its original place. But Taira Masakado is the 3rd god who is enshrined here, a real person. Now, there are plenty of things you can do when you come to a shrine in Japan, and one of them is to go and pray. Another one is to go and get a omamori, which is a charm, a lucky charm. And so many of them you'll see often are like this. This one is Kotsu Anzen, so health and safety when you're driving in traffic. And so you'll often have this is for a bike keychain. You'll often see them for cars, and also when you get a taxi in Japan, you can have a check in the rear view mirror to see if the taxi driver has one of these as well. So that's quite a normal amulet that you can get. However, Kanda Myojin is no normal shrine, and that is because you can also get, being so close to Akihabara, you can also get something which protects your IT information, your IT joho. So this you can go and stick on your computer or something like that, and you can use it to protect against viruses or malware, things like that. Not 100% certain that it works. I can't guarantee, but it is still a really fun, cool gift that you can get yourself or someone else to stick onto their computer. Now, something else which people really enjoy doing when they come to a shrine is emma, which is a prayer board. And premma are small kind of votive tablets which you can buy and then write your wish or a prayer to the gods. However, in Kanda Myojin, it's slightly different, because while you can do that, there are many pictures on here as well, drawings which people have done. These could be completely amateur drawings. They could even be professionals who are local manga artists and from anime studios. And in fact, there are also many people who take these home and they put a lot of time and effort into designing them themselves in the hopes that they will get signed by one of the local anime or manga studios. As you can see, there are some really fantastic, really cleverly designed tablets here which people have gone home and drawn themselves. Really beautiful, and one of the only places in Japan you'll find this. Usually they are just kind of plain wishes like this. Now this one here I want to point out, this has not been done by a fan, this is actually the official one of the shrine itself, and this is an anime called Love Live, and that is an anime that I'm going to talk a little bit about later because it has a real deep connection with Kanda Myojin Shrine. So we're going to come around in front of the main hall itself. You might actually be able to hear, but they've just started to do a ceremony here. So you can hear the taiko drums maybe in the background as they start talking. On the right over here you can see the two guardians. We've got further guardians inside. These are called koma inu. One has its mouth closed and one has its mouth open, and it's to symbolize the beginning and end of life. So every time you walk between the two of them, coming up to pray at the shrine, you are reminded of how close the beginning of life and the end of life are, and to make the most of your time. You can see just in the background the main shrine there. So as we come out into this slightly open space, not only can you come here and pray for yourself, you can also bring your car here to get blessed. That's right, I did say your car. For those of you who study Japanese or know a little bit of Japanese kanji, you may be able to recognize the top one there, which is for car. And this is where people do actually bring their brand new cars to get them blessed by the local priest or something like that. And they bring them here, the priest, it costs about £100 or so, and the priest will do a very short ceremony where they'll throw holy water in. You need the car doors open to get the spirits inside. We'll just come round here because I do want to mention one other often forgotten part of the shrine. It's at the back. We don't have time to go all the way down there today, but it is a tablet to not a real figure, but a fictional figure in Japanese history. And he is an Edo policeman called Zenigata Heiji. And he was the main character of a really popular manga in the 1930s, 40s and 50s. And why is he interesting? Well, actually, he caught his criminals by throwing money at them. It was a money throw. And actually, if you are a fan of Final Fantasy, particularly Final Fantasy V or Final Fantasy VI, you've probably used the money throw feature on the game. Guess who that was inspired by? Zenigata Heiji himself. So next time you're playing Final Fantasy, remember that this is where it all started. Now, right behind me, you probably recognize those girls who I just showed you earlier. This is a slightly bigger version of them. This is Love Live. This is an anime which swept the nation in 2013. And it was a hugely popular anime. It's about a group of schoolgirls who want to form an idol group in order to save their high school, to make it become more popular again. And in order to do so, none of them have any training or anything like that. They decided to come and do their training right here in Kanda Myojin. I'll show you in a minute where they actually trained, but the manga itself, the anime itself, is very true to life when you actually watch it. And now that you've seen what Kanda Myojin looks like in real life, you'll be able to see for yourself. But when the girls arrive, they encounter their senpai from the school, one of the older girls at the school, Nozomi, and she is a shrine maiden, or a miko. Now the miko, you can see them with their white top and orange dress. You may even have seen them in the background walking around here. They're shrine, they help out at the shrine, they do kind of day-to-day chores, and it may even kind of sell amulets and things like that. In fact, the ones that I showed you earlier, the IT information one, I bought that from a miko just like Nozomi here. May even have been inspired to be like Nozomi, and that's because when Nozomi and this anime was released, becoming a shrine maiden became an incredibly popular job for young schoolgirls and young girls to do in Japan. And so some of the shrine maidens that you see when you come to Japan may have seen Love Live, the anime. You can see behind me exactly how real and true to life that image is of Nozomi. So we're going to head over to the final port of the shrine, which is actually where the girls trained. And the girls needed to improve their stamina in order to perform live events and things like that. So what they would do is they would come running up and down these steps. Now these steps themselves are called Otokozaka, which actually means man steps or male steps, and is often used in Japanese to describe a very steep hill or very steep set of steps. So when you go hiking or something like that, you may have an otoko route and an onna route, so a steeper route and a less steep route. But actually, as the girls prove, you definitely do not just need to be a man in order to go up these steps. So they train, and you'll be able to see these steps in real life, in the anime itself, in episode 2 and also in season 2 as well. So if we have a quick look here, you can see a screenshot of it. So we are standing right here, pretty much where this figure here is, looking down, and you can again see how true to life that is. Now, we don't quite have the stamina to be running all the way down to Akihabara itself. It's a short hop, skip and a jump away, but fortunately for us, we have our good friend and colleague Brett, who's already over there waiting for us. So let's head over to him now. Let's go.
All right, thanks Rob, and HyperJapan, welcome to Akihabara proper. I'm Brett, and I'm going to take you to a few of my favorite places here in this area. You can really get the vibe of what Akihabara is about, maybe a game shop, figure shop. We'll just kind of see what all the excitement's about, right? So join me, let's go this way. So right now, we're going to enter through the train tunnel, basically. We've crossed the station, and now we're going to enter this side street here of Akihabara. This is a iconic site, a view here in the area. So you have, one thing that immediately hits your eyes is the Sega Arcade. There are 4 Sega Arcades within about a 3-minute walk of each other here in this area. Arcades are definitely very much a thing still here in Japan. Now right there you have, that's Akihabara Station. That's the train station. It's the one of the busiest train stations in the entire country. I believe it's number 4. Just over 1 million people go in and out of that station every single day. It's quite a transfer hub. You can see they've decorated the station with anime characters. Right now we're just slowly walking towards the main street of Akihabara, the Chuo-dori. As you can see, there's a lot to see. It can be overwhelming, the stimulation here in Akihabara for your eyes and your ears. I don't know if you can hear it, but it is also quite loud. Lots of different stuff competing for your attention. Here, this yellow building here with the red sign is Radio Kaikan. That's one of the very first radio stores, kind of first buildings, companies here in Akihabara after the big move, which I'll talk about in a second. As the name implies, it sold radio parts. Now it sells really anything you can think of electronics-wise and pop culture goods-wise, but it is definitely, it's an iconic building here in Akihabara. So let's talk a little bit about then this area and the history of why is Akihabara known for electronics. How did it start? How did it become kind of a center of otaku culture? And basically, I'm going to go a really quick history of Akihabara. I won't bore you with the history. If you want that, definitely come to Japan and I will bore you to death because I love it. But basically, hundreds of years ago, this area here was not called Akihabara, but it was well known for lower class samurai and fires and fighting. It's kind of a rough area, and it burnt down about 14 different times over the years, and finally the city said, all right, let's just make the entire area into a fire break, and it was just scorched earth is what it is, but eventually got built up a little bit, and then pre-World War II, it was known as more of a market. It sold flowers, and it sold fruit, things like that, dry goods, and then after World War II, this area was destroyed, but then rapidly a black market quickly came into play here, and it became very large. You had a lot of proprietors set up booths, just small booths, and they would sell things on and off the black market of dubious legality. Eventually the government decided, well, we can't let that happen, and so they said, we're going to destroy all of your booths and you have to move. And the Akihabara kind of society here, the people who were here were like, well, we don't want that. And so they kind of rose up a bit against the government, and eventually the government changed their minds and said, okay, well, we'll move you all to a place that is close to the station, which became Electric Town. And that's what is known today as Electric Town. And that's kind of how this area came to be. And then quickly, those booths came back here, and now they sold a lot of different things. For example, components and radio parts, really anything that has to do with electronics, you can find it here. I know about 10% of what this stuff is, but so many people do know what it is, and they love it. And this area here in particular is kind of a throwback to that immediately after World War II era of Akihabara. Now, of course, Akihabara is known for manga and video games and anime and figures and stuff, but it's known as Electric Town, and it sells everything electronics-wise, digital and analog. And of course, because it is Akihabara, you can always find a place to buy figures. I will show you a great figure place a little bit later on today, but you can see kind of, again, the vibe of this kind of older type style of Akihabara before we exit out here and see the main street of Chuo-dori and kind of see what Akihabara is like today. All right, so now we are at the main street. This is the Chuo-dori, the kind of main artery that runs through this part of the city. It goes all the way down to, it goes through Ginza. But you see above us here, that is that's the train tracks, the elevated train tracks, and underneath are kind of all of these shops and buildings. See, again, you see a couple different Sega arcades. There are multiple arcades in this area. Like I said before, kind of like a siren song. Your eyes immediately go to them, and you want to go inside. You see, what I want to do is I want to take you across the street here and head down one of the side streets. Akihabara, this main street here, which we're going to cross in a second, we'll see it kind of to the right, goes down about another 1.5 kilometers, and then the street keeps going, but Akihabara basically stops. And so you have this main street here with shops on both the right and left-hand sides. You also have a couple different parallel roads that are connected by these little side streets, and every single one of these shops is basically electronics or video games or manga or food. So if you're looking for any of those things, Akihabara is a paradise to find all of that stuff. Yeah, we're gonna take you down a little side street here. Oh, you have a little throwback here. This is the Japanese lottery, basically, right? And you can see a little red guy down there. That's our boy Daikokuten that Rob talked about earlier. He is, like Rob said, he is the kind of god of matrimony and harvest, but he's also the god of wealth and money. And so a lot of people here in Japan, they'll buy their lottery tickets, and then they do have a statue of Daikokuten himself. You can rub his hammer right there, and then it's good luck for winning the lottery. I have won the lottery so many times, I cannot count them. And so it does work. It's 100% guaranteed to work. All right, so we're just gonna continue walking down this street here. You see another store to your right is the Tokyo Radio department store. Again, these are just throwbacks from when this area was all about radios. Radios were very popular back in the 30s, the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And obviously, it was expensive to buy an already made radio if you could even find one, so people would buy components and put them together themselves. This hobby station here basically sells cards, so card games like Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, those type of games. And you can all see there, oh, you see, there's the Love Live characters from earlier as well, from Kanda Myojin. Because there are so many anime that come out every year in Japan, these are always changing. These posters and these faces and these drawings are always changing around in the area. Let's get off this street and actually take a right onto one of those parallel streets I mentioned earlier. And you can see it's just basically a maze of lights and shops, all selling electronics and components and food. Oh, coming up here is actually my favorite ramen place in the entire area. I'll point that out to you. So when you do come to Japan, I will take you to that place. I promise you, because I want to eat there. So I like, this is a really good ramen place. This is my favorite place in the area. It's Yokohama Kei Ramen. A few different branches across the city, but this is my favorite one. It's a really rich broth, chewier, kind of thicker noodles. And the eggs, it sounds weird, but the eggs are incredible. They just marinate them for hours. And it's just a great ramen place. Again, it's no fuss, absolutely fantastic ramen. Akihabara is known for its ramen. All right, we'll continue on. And to the right, you have, it's kind of tucked in between the arcades. So right here, it's called Hei, which is Hirose Entertainment Yard. And so it's my favorite arcade in the area. It's tucked in between the two Sega ones, but it's a really nice arcade where all the professionals go to practice and play, to get ready for EVO, the EVO tournament. It's a nice arcade with really high level players in it. Yeah, let's keep walking down the street here. This shop here, Kotobukiya, is a really popular spot for visitors to come. This place is, again, it's large. It has about 5 or 6 stories. This is where all the kind of newer, trendier anime, manga, the goods are sold, and you also have a really good variety of Nintendo and Studio Ghibli items as well. It's just a really nice kind of one-stop shop to go in and find all the goods you want, and just to see kind of just what's on sale, what is popular right now in Japan. All right, eventually we're coming up here to the first stop of the day, which is one of my favorite stores in the area. It's Super Potato. It is, some people might know the name, it's a very famous video game store, maybe one of the most famous in the world, definitely here in Japan, one of the most famous. And so, let's head inside. It is kind of difficult to find sometimes, because it's very small, but let's go up to the 3rd floor and take a look at what's going on inside. Let's speed it up though. And we've arrived. This is the entrance to Super Potato. Probably the most famous game store in Japan, maybe even the world, but a lot of people know it. It's very well known. So Super Potato itself, again, great name for a store by the way, is comprised of 3 different levels, right? The first level is retro, so anything from Atari all the way up to, let's say, Sega Saturn or so. And then the next level is a little bit up, a little bit more modern, but it doesn't go past PlayStation 3. And then the top floor is their game center, their arcade. It's a really small arcade, but consistently voted one of the best in the country because it has some rarities. So let's check out a couple of these floors. So join me as we take in Super Potato, the store itself. The store is kind of half retail space and half museum, and it has a lot of one-of-a-kind items about video game history. You can see it is, I mean, at first blush, a paradise for video gamers. It has, as you can see, loads of different consoles from all different generations, especially if you know your twin Famicoms down there. The red one, that's very expensive now and pretty hard to find. They had just loads of them. Their tagline here at Super Potato is actually games from 10 yen, about 7p, all the way up to 100,000 yen, which is about 7,000 pounds. And so you can find some really expensive games here and some quite reasonable ones as well. This right here is all for, this is high dollar stuff. And so you have, again, games that from about 7,000 yen all the way up to some that are just not for sale because they're so rare. But you have some that are, about 2,000 pounds or so. And up here, again, what kind of part of like the museum part of it is this right here. Some people may know what this sign actually is. That says in kanji, Nintendo Entertainment. So that is Nintendo's kind of one of their original logos. Actually, when Nintendo is written about in newspapers here in Japan, it actually still uses their kanji. So that is Nintendo. All right, let's keep going. Let's go around this way. The aisles are very narrow. So when you come, you got to watch your bags. But this, just for example, right? These are Famicom games, and so Famicom you might know as Nintendo games. So in the UK and in America as well, it's just some gray plastic squares. In Japan, this is what they're like. So for example, this is Super Mario Brothers, right? About 700 yen, about 300 pounds, I believe. About 3 pounds, sorry. And this is, again, they didn't have really any rules for how colorful or different shaped the games could be. And so you have a bunch of different shapes and colors as well. You have down here, I mean, you have Donkey Kong Jr., a lot of games, very nostalgic for people of a certain age, of which I am that age. You can see there's loads of things around here, right? And this is just the Famicom section. We're gonna go over here. This is the box Famicom section, right? So this is the boxes. A lot of people threw away their boxes when they were kids. Most people didn't here in Japan, so you can find boxes, instructions as well, all together here with them. Again, very rare to find and all in pretty good shape. I'll talk more about used versus new in Japan in a second. You have a working Virtual Boy. Just pretty, regardless of your feelings about Virtual Boy, they have one here. All right, let's move around here. You have Sega Saturn. Let's go around this way. The Super Mario ties. I actually have this tie clip right here because I am a fancy dude. Here, right, is a Super Famicom, so Super Nintendo to most people. I do want to give a little bit of a lesson here, right, because this has to do in the broader sense of not just video games as well. So let's take this for example, right? This is Chrono Trigger, right? A game, doesn't matter if you don't know it, but just know that this game right here in Japan is 4,200 yen about, right? So around, let's say 30 pounds or so, right? In America, this game would go for about $800, right? Very expensive game. Even I know in Japan, 4,000 yen is pretty cheap for this. It should be around maybe 6,000 to 7,000, sometimes maybe 8,000. So why is this so cheap? That's because up here, it's basically saying, well, the box is damaged and it's sun faded and things. But if you look at it, I mean, it looks pretty good to me. Anyways, it looks good enough to maybe not take 50% off the price, but that goes to show that the Japanese take very good care of their items. And so rule of thumb here, when it comes to video games, it comes to pottery, it comes to clothing and other electronics, is that don't be afraid to buy used in Japan. I mean, Japan used is a lot of countries is new. So again, don't be afraid to buy used stuff. Let's continue this way. See, I could spend hours here, I'm sure you could as well, but let's head up to the next floor, which is going to be the arcade. Give you a little bit last look of this first floor of Super Potato. Also Mario Boxers, if you did want to buy Mario Boxers. Okay, so now we've arrived at the top floor of Super Potato, which is their retro arcade. So like I said, it's a small one, but consistently ranked as one of the best in the city because of the rarity of their games there. It also has a cool section with older kind of retro Japanese candy. Let's go check it out for a second. Like I said, it is pretty small, but it's very, very cool. It has a lot of kind of different games. Like this is the new Pong, kind of the Pong anniversary. That's what that is. You have a lot of, again, rare kind of cool games. You have Monster Hunter right here, Wonder Boy Monster Land, which is really, really good game. Kind of rare to find. Of course, you have your Street Fighter 2. Again, it's a lot of games that are the sit-down type here in Japan instead of the stand-up type, which is standard throughout the rest of the country, of the world. Got an ice cream vending machine just in case. As you know, playing video games, you immediately get that ice cream craving. I also have my boy Solid Snake there from the Metal Gear series. And a TV that I wished I had when I was a little kid. A Game Boy TV, which is not showing anything but does show the Monster Hunter Gold videos. Again, a small arcade, but a lot of great games in here. One of my favorites of all time, right, is Dynamite Deca, which is right here. Great game. Right next to Double Dragon. Dynamite Deca is also known as Die Hard Arcade in the States. And here you have a lot of just amazing Japanese candy. Very cheap, anywhere from about 10 yen, so 7p, to around 60 yen. That's very, very cheap. You have, I mean, things like your old style candy cigarettes, right? So, candy cigarettes. And it's all kind of loads, it's different sugars. I mean, it's old style Japanese candy, which is just a fantastic souvenir as well to bring home because it's very cheap and it's also very light. And something to give your friends as you go on. So again, if you do come to Japan and come to Super Potato, don't sleep on the 3rd floor. It's a really cool arcade where you can get your fix for Japanese candy as well as your retro arcade games. Let's move on. All right, so that was Super Potato. Next stop is literally just across the street. I want to bring you to a fantastic figure store and kind of delve a little bit more into a different side of Akihabara. Again, another facet of the area, because you do have, again, video games, anime, manga, but then you also have the whole figures scene, right? So I'm gonna go right here, which is the Akiba Cultures Theater, the Culture Center, and go up to the 4th floor of that to a really unique, a really cool figure shop I want to show you. I hope you kind of notice the pattern here, and that is basically that everything's stacked up on top of each other in this big, huge city. I mean, you have 30 million people all on top of each other. If you just kind of look ground floor, you're not going to see everything. You're going to miss a lot of stuff, which is why you have a place like this, right? So you have multiple stories. You have 6 stories of all different kinds of pop culture goods. A lot of it is anime and manga. You do have the odd yo-yo store, but and trains as well. So again, when I say Akihabara is a otaku center, otaku, right, as people know, means can be nerd or something like that, but really it means that you're knowledgeable and passionate about one thing. You could be a train otaku. You could be a video game otaku. You could be a Disney otaku. Really anything that you're passionate and knowledgeable about. So we're going to head up here to the 4th floor. I'm going to cut through the 1st floor, and you can see kind of a little bit of what this store has to offer. So you can see, if you can think of any sort of property, whether it be One Piece or Kimetsu no Yaiba or Dragon Ball or anything like that, they have made goods to sell of it. A lot of these are actually used, and I gave you a little lesson before about used versus new. And again, don't be afraid to buy used. All right, now we're just going to head up to the escalator and again speed it up a bit and show you my favorite store in the area. All right, everybody, we have arrived at the 4th floor on the Akiba Culture Zone building. And we're going to head to my favorite figure store in Akihabara. It's called Stop. And it's uniquely set up, and it has kind of a cool system we'll just talk about soon. But you can see here, I mean, this store here sells basically just train goods, about trains. You can see model trains and things. And from here, this is Stop. So you can see it has a ton of figures and just anime related goods. And one of the really cool things about this store is that all of these boxes here are all consignment. And so, for example, if you have something you want to sell, you'll rent one of these boxes and then set your own prices, and then you can sell your goods to everybody who walks by. And so, and with that system, you get a lot of different varieties of things from a lot of different eras. And again, one of the other cool things about this store, the manager himself, Yoshiyama-san, basically set it up where it is a kind of a treasure hunt. They want it to be a treasure hunt. There is really no rhyme or reason or organization of kind of where things are, because again, it's consignment. And so half of the fun is just hunting and seeing if you can find what it is you want to buy. That's really part of the fun of it. Again, as I said earlier, if you can think of any sort of property, they definitely have something for you to buy. Right, that was a quick look at Stop. For now, let's head back down, and I'm going to hand the baton off to Chantel, and she's going to take you around to one of her favorite places in the area. Let's go!
Hi there. A huge thanks to Brett and Rob for getting us all the way here. You know, we've seen an amazing shrine, we saw some of the coolest shops, and now it's time to take you through the back streets As Brett mentioned, my name is Chantel, so let me take you on a ride through the hidden part of Akihabara. So immediately to your right, way off in the distance, you can see a gray building. If you look carefully, you can read that it says Yodabashi. The whole thing is Yodabashi Camera. So a lot of people, when they come to Japan, you get off the train, you're standing on the station tracks, and people say, wow, is that a stadium? It's actually an electronics store. That over there, Yodabashi Camera, is the largest electronics store in the whole world. So if you're not too privy on putting together your own radio out of the parts we saw with Brett earlier, you can just go to Yodabashi Camera, or even this store just in front of us called Big Camera, and pick up just about any of your electronic needs you can imagine. And connected to this big camera, there are rows and rows of small white boxes. So these are called gachapon. They're every kid's little dream, so they're perfectly kid height, and they contain little capsule toys. So sometimes they have anime characters, they have animals doing strange things. For example, there's one over here of animals getting in an onsen or a hot spring. You can find birds, people working out, chopsticks holders, the randomest figurines ever, and there's always people who collect them. You can decorate your room with these, or a lot of times I see people put them in their car. But it certainly is an adventure. It adds to the treasure hunt of Akihabara to try and collect the whole set of any series of gachapon toys. So we're actually back on the main road, Chuo-dori, that Brett introduced earlier. And along this road, there are plenty more figurine shops, electronic shops, and even arcades. So Brett pointed out that there are several different arcades, all numbered, Sega anyway, within this area. And over here we have a Taito, and we also pass Hey Hirose Entertainment. So there's plenty of options for whatever kind of gaming you'd like to do. For example, there used to be an arcade in this area that had a game where you flip tables over, and the harder you flipped it, the more points you got. Another arcade in this area has an airsoft shooting game. So each one has their own little intricacies, their own little specialties that set it apart from the other. So what I recommend is you just have to go to them all. Make sure you have plenty of 100 yen coins. So in this area, Brett also mentioned that his favorite restaurant was a ramen restaurant. And part of the reason for that is, as you get to different areas of Tokyo, they'll specialize in different kinds of foods. For example, if you wanted to get okonomiyaki, or savory Japanese pancakes, the best place to do that would be in Asakusa. So Asakusa has plenty of shops all specializing in okonomiyaki. If you want to have fresh, delicious sushi, you got to go to the source. You can go to Tsukiji Fish Market. And if you want to have great ramen noodles, you come to Akihabara. So Akihabara is known for having lots of ramen stalls. And part of the reason is people are shopping. That's the main event. They're shopping, they're playing games. You don't want to sit down for a long time and eat, unless of course you're doing so with a maid. But we'll address that later. So a lot of the shops in this area where you eat tend to be things like ramen, where you could quickly be in and out, or like some of these stalls we have here on the right, where you just get a snack. So we have the very authentic Japanese crepe, filled with things like Oreos and cheesecake. And you know, if you're not feeling like a sweet snack, you can get what's called Takoyaki, which are tiny balls filled with octopus. And this one specializes in frying the takoyaki, so they're extra crispy and they have a lot of unique flavors. See her making some of the takoyaki right now. And that's a special type of machine that has a hole at the bottom, and then you cook one side, flip it over, you can see what she's doing, to make little balls. You can even buy these for use at home, just a mini version, and you can make sweet takoyaki, if you will, with bananas and chocolate, or the savory ones like she made. All up to you. Another popular snack in this area is meats on sticks. You can't go wrong with that. This one has some Wagyu and even Kobe beef. There's some stranger items like tongue on the menu. Beef tongue is actually, it tastes a lot better than it sounds. So when you go to these type of places, I recommend asking the chef what his recommendation is, or his osusume, and they'll always give you a treat. So we're getting very close to our hidden spot. So if we're gonna move to the right, which looks like nothing else is over there, kind of seems like the street ends. And there's a small animal cafe where you can go inside and play with rabbits or play with hedgehogs. Those type of animal cafes are popular in this area as well, but we won't be going there. There's actually a small alleyway right next to it that I want to take you down to show you how Akihabara has changed over the years. Akihabara has been built up and torn down so many times that vestiges of the past have sometimes been overlooked and even sandwiched between buildings. So let's take a look. In any normal city, I would never tell people to go down a dark alleyway in between a building. But Tokyo is safe enough and has enough hidden treasures in these type of places that you actually can recommend it. So this is a secret sometimes Google Maps can't even find. We're getting closer. And here to our right, we have a very small, compact Shinto Shrine. So where Rob introduced us at Kandamyoji, that too is a Shinto Shrine, just a much grander and bigger one. This little guy is dedicated to Hanabusa Inari. It's called Hanabusa Inari Shrine, and it's for a god that's supposed to help you get better when you're sick. Let's say if you have a cough. So this should be the #1 shrine that people are coming to right now. But hey, people don't even know it's here. Legend has it is, you're supposed to pray for wellness, and then in 100 days you should be better. And whenever you do get better, you're supposed to buy these 2 little guardians. These ones are foxes. You have to buy them a new bib so that they are clean and ready to help the next person. Very similar to the guardian dogs that were outside of the shrine we saw earlier. There's always guardians when you go to a shrine. Sometimes they're foxes, sometimes they're dragons, all kinds of guardians. All right, so you pop out and you're just back on another random street. But what makes this street so special is 2 things. One is they have a very interesting array of vending machines. So in Japan, you could be anywhere and see drink machines. For there's over 5 million of those across the country. There's some on top of Mount Fuji. There's some in front of my house. But when you come to places like Akihabara, there's more unique vending machines that sell things like Pokemon cards, or idol group goods, or even Yu-Gi-Oh cards. There's another area down the street with some really wacky items such as escargot and strange stories that you can also buy. You can find things like figurines. And right in between these vending machines we have an outdoor game. You don't see this too often in Tokyo. Hey there, Brett. What you playing?
Street Fighter.
Looks like Brett's working on some Street Fighter. If you find your way down this alley, you can take a break, play some Street Fighter, and get right back to gaming.
All right, let's stop.
So a huge thank you to everyone for joining us on this tour today. There's so much more to see in Akihabara. We really just scratched the surface. So I highly implore you to come back, go on a treasure hunt of your own. And of course, if you need some help, you can call me, Rob, or Brett to help you find exactly what you want. Thanks for joining us.